Hi, everybody. I just wanted to talk real quick about something that, you've been seeing a lot of people in the news, a lot of politicians, a lot of pundits, stuff like that talk about since the election, and that's the Latina, the Latin vote, and how Latinos and Latinas have been voting more for Republicans, voted more for Trump than they did previously. And, there have been so many articles, talking about why, wondering why, how it could happen. Why are the Democrats losing the Latin vote? Democrats have been talking about it, many elected officials. And, I think I've got some good insight into this. I am a political organizer. I've been working on progressive causes my whole career, several years now. And say hi to my cat Shuri also. And I am Latin. I'm a Latino, even though you can't always hear it in my voice when I speak English. I'm Bolivian or Bolivian American. My mother is Bolivian. Didn't move to the USA until she was an adult, and my dad is half Bolivian, half American. I speak Spanish. I even lived briefly in South America. I, consider myself American, but also really connected to my, Latin and even Bolivian identity. And, in my political organizing, I've had many opportunities to talk to so many Latinos and Latinas all over the country about, what's important to them, why they're voting, whatever way they're voting. And so let me go ahead and get into it. First of all, why more Latinos and Latinas are voting Republican, voting for people like Trump. It's a complicated issue. It's really multifaceted. And, a lot of people try to oversimplify it. And but at the end of the day, there's a myriad of layered reasons. But at the same time, I do believe it's simple enough so that I can give a pretty good explanation, basic explanation anyway, kind of a summary in just a few minutes. So, first of all, a lot of Democrats have assumed for quite a while now that because Republicans and conservatives have really been ramping up their rhetoric against Latins, against Hispanics, and against Latin Hispanic immigrants, they've been spouting a lot of rhetoric against them, even just a lot of pure racism. A lot of pure racism against Mexicans, Mexican Americans, Latins in general, Hispanics in general. And so many Democrats have assumed because Latins, Hispanics are getting insulted by conservatives and Democrats that automatically means that they're not going to vote for them. And that perspective, definitely lacks an understanding of Latin and Hispanic culture. Now, Latin and Hispanic culture, Latins aren't a monolith. Bolivians are very different from Argentinians, are very different from Mexicans in a lot of ways. South American Latins are very different from Caribbean, from Mexican Latins. But there are a lot of shared values and shared identities. There's the common language of Spanish and some Portuguese. There's the common kind of historical background of being a mix of African, Spanish or Portuguese, and indigenous. And there's a lot of shared, music and cultural identity amongst all Latins. So there definitely are a few things you can kind of say about Latin culture in general. And one of those things is that it's very practical. A Latin American person in general will take an insult on the chin if you insult them and then do something practical for them. It's partially by necessity. It's a very practical culture, comprised of peoples who've been downtrodden and fought against oppression for hundreds of years. So insults aren't as big of a deal to Latin culture as maybe they are to Anglo culture, maybe even African American culture. And a lot of Latin people can take the insults that conservatives throw at them because they think that conservatives are championing policies that'll improve their lives, pro-business policies, lower taxes, um, policies that maybe align with a lot of their social feelings. So Latin people in general think very practically. So when uh, when they get insulted, if they think the person insulting them is still championing policies that will serve in their best interest and their family's best interest, then they'll swallow those insults and they'll vote for them. And Democrats, especially, white Democrats, I think really missed that. They really thought that once Republicans ramped up their insults on Hispanic, that they had it in the bag. And that was just completely not true. Democrats need to practically appeal to Latins, not just simply not insult them. They need to figure out, policies and messaging that shows Hispanics that they're advancing, policies that will help them, Latins, and that I think that'll could make a huge difference. Also, so many Democrats just don't realize how socially conservative a lot of Latin people are. When it comes to, for instance, LGBTQ plus rights, a lot of Latin people are violently evangelical, Catholic and other Christian denominations, extraordinarily conservatively Christian. And so when Republicans, start doing things like managing to put conservative Supreme Court justices on the bench, and when they manage to do stuff like overturn Roe v. Wade, that matters to a large percentage of Latins, and they see that in a very positive light. Again, just because Republicans insult them, it doesn't mean that they'll just vote for them when the Republicans are agreeing with them on a lot of things. So, they'll take those insults on the chin if they are anti-abortion, and, Republicans manage to get rid of abortion, or at least, get rid of it on a national level. And so a lot of Latins identify with Republicans on LGBTQ plus matters. Unfortunately, a lot of them would want to see, gay marriage overturned. A lot of them are uncomfortable with trans people, gay people, it's very unfortunate that's the case, but it's true, and Democrats need to understand this. Also, again, when it comes to abortion, I say this as a very pro-choice and pro-reproductive health person, but a lot of Latins, again, tied to their evangelicism, are extremely anti-reproductive health and anti-abortion. And reproductive health has become such a humongous part of the Democrats' platform that it's turned a lot of Latins and Hispanics off. Now, I don't think reproductive health should be a smaller part of the Democrats' platform, so that's a tricky one, but at least it partially explains, why so many Democrats, Hispanics and Latins are moving to the right. It ties into them being evangelicals, devout Catholics, anti-abortion ideology. They often tie that into pro-family because, unfortunately, Republicans have convinced a lot of people that being pro-family means you have to be anti-transgender, you have to be homophobic, really, which is completely not the case. You can be pro-family and not be homophobic and not be transphobic. But a lot of Republicans have convinced a lot of people that that's not the case, and that you also can't be Christian if you're not transphobic or homophobic. And a lot of Latins, they really identify with their Christianity, and anything that seems to go against it is something that, they can have a lot of trouble with, a lot of Latins and Hispanic people. So again, it's a multifaceted issue, but it's on several waves fronts: economic, social. Social, we talked about, stuff like Christianity, LGBTQ plus rights, being anti-abortion or pro-choice. And then economically, I just said a lot of Democrats don't understand that Hispanic people, Latin people tend to often be socially conservative. Well, they also tend to be economically conservative. Lower taxes, smaller government, less regulations, less red tape when it comes to stuff like small business ownership and things like that. All those are things that Latin and Hispanic people and culture tend to really value. A very large portion of Latin Hispanic people are small business owners. A lot of them see that as the best opportunity they have in the USA to have a good living for themselves and their family. And lower taxes, smaller government, especially smaller government, because a lot of Latin Hispanic people come from countries, with oppressive governments. Immigrants from Venezuela, immigrants from Cuba, just to name a couple of examples. So, uh, smaller government, lower taxes, less regulations, all those things really speak to a lot of core elements of Latin Hispanic culture. And again, Democrats have totally missed that. So Democrats just totally missed that in a lot of ways. A lot of Latin people can be socially and economically conservative, and they haven't found ways to speak to these people that can show them that progressive or democratic policies might be better for them than a lot of these conservative Republican policies, better for them and their families. Safety is a big thing too. Latin Hispanic people are obsessed with safety. That also coming from a lot of countries that are more dangerous in a lot of ways than the USA. Higher violent crime rates, higher rates of theft and robbery, and tough on crime really speaks to a lot of Latin Hispanic peoples, especially a lot of immigrants from Latin Hispanic countries, are escaping gang violence. So tough on crime really speaks to them because to them that means safe. And Democrats have not done a good job of showing people that um, tough on crime policies aren't always the best for creating a safe societies. Addressing the root causes of gang violence and other types of violence are often the best ways to ensure that people are safe and that people aren't committing these violent crimes. And they just haven't been able to show Latin and Hispanic people that. So it just feels like over the past several years, Democrats have just been completely misunderstanding Latin and Hispanic people. It really does seem like, for the most part, Democrats thought, okay, Republicans don't want Hispanic immigrants. They tend to say a lot of racist things against Hispanic and Latin people. We've got this in the bag. That's it. All we have to do is remind Latin and Hispanic people that Republicans are racist against them and don't want immigrants. And boom, we're going to get their vote. And as we've seen, that's not the case. One thing I do want to say, though, is that, there's been so much talk of Democrats losing the Latin vote this past election. And yes, a lot of Latins did vote for Republicans and Trump that previously didn't. But the majority, slim majority, but the majority of Latins in the USA still did vote for Democrats. Democrats have not completely lost the Latin vote, especially when it comes to Latin women. I think about maybe 6% fewer Latin women than men voted for Trump, and Latin women still voted Democrat. I think 58, maybe 60% in the general election. So there's hope. Democrats still have the slim majority of the Latin vote in the country. I've seen so many articles saying they've lost the Latin vote completely, it's done, they're all Republicans now, and that's simply not the reality. The reality is that a slim majority of Latins and a slightly less slim majority of Latinas still vote Democrats, for Democrats, and vote blue. And yeah, I guess that's really all I wanted to say. Like I said, it's a complex issue, but at the same time, there are a few pretty obvious points that not enough people are making. Will the Democrats gain more Latin votes in the upcoming years? I don't know. They don't seem to be changing their messaging for the most part at all. They don't seem to be trying to reach out in the right way. Hopefully that changes. All right.